him.
Yeah, and where is he going to get the Marine division? They're all already exhausted in Afghanistan, and some of them left in Iraq. So, this all has a degree of unreality. And when I see Senator Kit Bond of Missouri and John Kyle talking about we need regime change in Iran because there's such a threat to Israel, well, that just reminds me of the old saw about when they offered to make Israel the 51st state of the United States, Israel refused. You know why, Alex?
Well, no, why?
Because then they'd only have 2 senators.
Oh, man. This is just insane. So what's the intel you're getting? Are they planning to hit Iran, or are they just going to have sanctions? Where is this going?
I think Netanyahu is chafing at the bit. And I think Obama is under great pressure from the Likud lobby and from those still in the White House who have great difficulty distinguishing between what they perceive to be the strategic interests of Israel on the one hand and those of the United States on the other. I hope, and that's what it is, a hope. It's just a little bit more than a little less than an expectation that Obama will stand up to this. This would be a ruinous war. This would be worse than what he contemplates doing in Afghanistan. This would be bedlam. And I think that as long as he listens to people like Mullen, that he'll be restrained.
Final segment with Ray McGovern straight ahead. I want to get his take on the Russia situation, where he thinks Afghanistan's going. I just wish we could stop having all these wars. I mean, our government has overthrown Iran repeatedly. They're constantly meddling inside their nation. We've really done this country wrong, folks. And now they're saying they're going to nuke us. I mean, it's just pure bull. Ray McGovern is our guest. Final segment. Ray, what about the rest of the world, geopolitically? What's going on?
Well, what's going on is the rest of the world is looking at us and kind of shaking its head. The Russians and the Chinese and the Indians are the big players, of course. And as they watch what we're trying to do in Afghanistan, they're sort of shrugging their shoulders and saying, well, be our guest. We all tried that in Afghanistan. We all failed, going back to Alexander the Great, not to mention Genghis Khan and the Persians and the Indians and the British and the Russians. Go ahead, waste your military. And with respect to with Iran, the Russians used to care a great deal about what happened on their soft southern underbelly, but they seem almost cavalier with respect to Iranian plans. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that they don't have Israel as their, quote, ally, end quote. Now, why do I use quotes? Well, because 99% of the American people believe that Israel is an ally of the United States. That's wrong. An alliance requires a treaty. There is no mutual defense treaty between the United States and Israel. And the reason there is none is because treaties require internationally recognized boundaries, and Israel is in possession for over 60 years now. No, 60 years from 67 on till now, whatever the math is, of the occupied territories, West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Gaza Strip. And Israel, the last thing it wants is to have any international body draw the borders back to where they used to be. So there is no alliance, and yet we proceed, and the media characterizes our relationship with Israel as an alliance. Our policymakers treat it that way. But Russia sits back and laughs and says, well, if they do something really idiotic, if they close the Straits of Hormuz, guess who benefits? Who benefits?
Russia.
Russia has got all the oil, Man, the price of oil, we'll be able to have a villa, we'll have a dacha for each little worker in the Russia.
Is that why Russia met with Netanyahu secretly a month ago and has now said they support sanctions against Iran?
Well, Russia plays a very clever game. They express concern about this, and then they go ahead. Now, with Netanyahu, they are a restraining influence, although they don't care as much as we do. So when Netanyahu goes up there, what what you expect him to get is not approval for a strike on Iran, but some sort of reassurance that, for example, the Russians won't sell sophisticated missiles to defend the Iranian sites there, the enrichment sites. So, last year, Ehud Olmert went to Moscow, and he was summoned there, and the Russians warned him in similarly definitive terms, like Admiral Mullen, don't even think of attacking Iran. So the Russians have no real incentive for that kind of attack, but if it happens, they're going to be the big beneficiary by doubling the price of their oil.
Got to cut you off. We're almost out of time. In the last minute, do you think it's sanctions or an attack? I mean, if you had to make a dead reckoning again, do you think they're going to hit Iran in the next year or two?
I don't know, Alex. It will depend on how this thing plays out. There will be sanctions first, but there's great pressure for an attack, and I would not rule out the likelihood that Israel would be given a nod by somebody in the White House and go ahead and do it and force our hand.
And then Iran will go absolutely wild.
Oh, yeah, it'll be bedlam, and we'll suffer great attrition for our own troops in the area.
Ray McGovern, thank you for your time.
You're most welcome.